Don't you dare lie to me. I saw everything on the cameras. Not only are you a cheater, but you're a fool for thinking you could do it right under my nose.
The smell of motor oil and burnt coffee hit me as I unlocked my shop at 5:30 in the morning. Another sleepless night, another early start at Rollins Auto Security. I'd been running on 3 hours of sleep for weeks now, ever since Sienna started her fitness journey at that upscale gym downtown. My name is Eddie Rollins, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a decent marriage. 15 years of what I believed was partnership with Sienna, my wife, who works in HR at TechFlow Solutions. She makes twice what I do, which never bothered me until recently. Now, every conversation feels like a performance review where I'm failing. "Morning, boss," Ray called from under the hood of a BMW. My mechanic and security installer had been with me for 5 years, ever since he got out of county lockup for a bar fight that wasn't his fault. Ray's got more loyalty in his pinky finger than most people have in their entire body. "Sienna's third girls' night this week," I muttered, firing up the coffee maker. Who needs that much female bonding? Ray slid out from under the car, wiping grease on his coveralls. "Eddie, I've told you before, trust a woman who posts pictures of her salad on Instagram about as far as you can throw a transmission." I laughed, but it felt hollow. Sienna had been documenting every meal, every workout, every spontaneous coffee date with her gym friends Mel and Jules. Her social media had become a highlight reel of a life that somehow didn't include me. The morning dragged on with routine maintenance calls and security system installations. I specialize in high-end car alarms and GPS tracking systems. Ironic, considering I'd never thought to track my own wife. Around noon, Mrs. Donnelly from next door shuffled over with her usual gossip disguised as neighborly concern. "Eddie, dear," she said, adjusting her thick glasses, "I don't mean to pry, but I've seen Sienna with that young man in the white Jeep again. Yesterday around 2 o'clock when you were at the Henderson installation." My stomach dropped. "What young man?" "Tall, very muscular, always wearing those tight tank tops. They were talking very close together in your driveway. I thought maybe he was a trainer or something, but..." She trailed off with the satisfied look of someone who'd planted a seed of doubt. That evening, Sienna came home glowing from her workout, designer gym bag slung over her shoulder. She kissed my cheek with the enthusiasm of someone checking off a chore. "How was girls' night?" I asked, watching her face carefully. "Oh, you know how it is. Mel's drama with her ex, Jules, complaining about work, same old stuff." She headed straight for the shower without making eye contact. I'd installed security systems for 15 years. I knew when someone was lying. The next morning, Sienna rushed out for work, leaving her gym bag on the kitchen counter. She never forgot anything. Sienna was obsessively organized. This had to be intentional, maybe a test to see if I'd snoop. I failed her test spectacularly. Inside the bag, underneath her designer workout clothes and organic protein bars, I found a burner phone, a cheap flip phone that looked like something from 2010. My hands shook as I opened it. The text messages made my coffee taste like acid. "Can't wait to feel you again. Zia. Eddie's working late tonight. Come over at 8. S. You're so much more man than he'll ever be. S. Going to leave him soon. Just need to figure out the money situation. S. I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one a knife twist. Videos I couldn't bring myself to watch. Plans for meetups that coincided perfectly with her girls' nights and extended gym sessions. Zane Carter. I'd heard Sienna mention him. Some Instagram influencer personal trainer at her gym. The guy with the white Jeep that Mrs. Donnelly had seen. My heart didn't break. Hearts break clean, with sharp edges and clear pain. This was different. This was calcification, a slow hardening of everything soft inside me. Ray found me an hour later, still sitting in my kitchen, staring at the phone. "Jesus, Eddie. You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said, handing him the phone. "I've seen my future." Ray scrolled through the messages, his face darkening with each swipe. "That cheating piece of..." He caught himself. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to think it through, really think it through." Over the next week, I became a student of my wife's deception. Every morning, I copied the contents of the burner phone before she woke up. Ray helped me install a mirror app that would forward all her regular phone activity to a secure device in my shop. Legal? Questionable. Satisfying? Absolutely. The picture that emerged was worse than simple infidelity. Sienna and her gym crew, Mel, Jules, and now Zane, had turned me into their regular entertainment. Screenshots of our text conversations where I'd ask about dinner plans or weekend activities were shared with laughing emojis and commentary. "He's so clueless. I could bring Zane to the house and he'd offer him a beer, Sienna had written to Mel. Does he really think you're at book club until midnight? Jules had responded. The man installed security systems for a living but can't secure his own wife, Zane had added, followed by several crying, laughing emojis. I'd spent 15 years building a business, a reputation, a life. They were treating it like a sitcom. The breaking point came on Thursday. I was installing a GPS tracking system for a client when I decided to check the security cameras outside my own shop. There, in the parking lot, was Zane's white Jeep with heavily tinted windows. It was rocking gently, rhythmically. I watched my wife cheat on me 50 feet from where I was working. That night, Sienna came home with takeout from our favorite Thai place, a peace offering for some guilt she thought I couldn't detect. You seem stressed lately, she said, setting out containers of pad Thai and green curry. Maybe you should come to the gym with me sometime, meet my friends. Maybe I will, I replied. And for the first time in weeks, my smile was genuine. Friday evening, I followed her to Platinum Fitness. The gym was everything I'd expected. Gleaming equipment, mirrored walls, and enough testosterone and perfume to choke a horse. I paid for a day pass and positioned myself at a weight bench where I could observe without being obvious. Sienna was holding court near the free weights with Mel and Jules. Mel was a bottle blonde with surgical enhancements and the kind of laugh that could shatter glass. Jules was quieter, mousy, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. She was the type who collected secrets like baseball cards. Then Zane appeared. 6'2", professionally tanned, wearing a tank top that might as well have been painted on. He had the kind of sculpted physique that required more maintenance than a Ferrari. When he smiled at my wife, she lit up like Christmas morning. I watched him put his hands on her waist to adjust her form during squats. Watched her giggle at his jokes like a teenager. Watched Mel slip her an envelope while Jules kept lookout. The envelope was thick. Cash, maybe, or documents. Something they didn't want traced. I'd seen enough. As I headed for the exit, I heard Zane's voice carry across the gym. Your husband seems like a nice guy. Too bad nice guys finish last. The laughter that followed, including Sienna's, was the sound of my marriage officially ending. Ray was waiting at the shop when I got back, nursing a beer and scrolling through printouts of Sienna's messages. Found something interesting, he said, handing me a sheet of paper. Look at the timestamps on these. The messages showed a pattern I'd missed before. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Sienna texted Zane from her office at TechFlow. But according to her location data, she wasn't at TechFlow during those times. She was at his apartment complex downtown. She's lying to her job too, Ray observed, taking long lunches to play house with Muscle Beach. Gets better, I said, pulling up Zane's Instagram on my phone. Look at this. Zane's feed was a monument to narcissism, shirtless selfies, motivational quotes over sunset backgrounds, and videos of him training clients who all looked like aspiring Instagram models. But buried in the comments were complaints from former clients about missed sessions and unprofessional behavior. Guy's a flake, Ray said. Probably sees your wife as a meal ticket. Probably right. I leaned back in my chair thinking, Ray, how hard would it be to clone Sienna's key fob for her car? About 10 minutes if I have the original. Why? Because tomorrow, my dear wife is going to have some car trouble. Saturday morning, Sienna announced she was going to the gym for a long session with her trainer. She kissed my forehead with the same enthusiasm she'd show a golden retriever and headed out. 30 minutes later, Ray and I were parked across from Platinum Fitness, watching Sienna's BMW in the parking lot. Ray had swapped her key fob with a modified version that would stop working after 2 hours. This feels like something out of a spy movie, Ray muttered, adjusting the radio frequency scanner he'd brought to monitor her phone calls. If spies had cheating wives and trust issues, I replied. We didn't have to wait long. Sienna emerged from the gym with Zane, both of them laughing and touching each other with the casual closeness of established lovers. They walked to her car, and I watched her face change from confident to confused to frustrated as her key fob refused to work. Zane tried his own car. Ray had disabled that too, just for fun. Looks like they're calling an Uber, Ray observed, watching them through binoculars. Good. Let them figure out how to get back to get their cars later. But the real payoff came that evening. Sienna arrived home in a taxi, furious about her defective car and Zane's Jeep mysteriously breaking down at the same time. Worst luck ever, she complained, throwing her gym bag on the couch. Had to pay for an Uber to Zane's place to use his shower since the gyms were broken, then another one home. The lies came so easily to her. If I hadn't been watching the whole thing, I might have believed her. That's weird, I said, not looking up from my newspaper. What are the odds of two cars breaking down at the same time? Right? Zane thinks someone might have messed with them on purpose. Like, who would do that? I met her eyes over the paper. Can't imagine. By Monday, I had a complete picture of Sienna's deception. The burner phone revealed that she and Zane had been planning their affair for months, starting with innocent flirting and escalating to regular meetups at his apartment. Mel was acting as their lookout and messenger, while Jules provided alibis through fake work events and fictional social gatherings. But the worst discovery was in a series of messages between Sienna and Jules about exit strategies. They'd researched divorce lawyers, discussed how to hide assets, and even explored filing false domestic violence claims to gain advantage in proceedings. She's planning to destroy you, Ray said, reading over the printouts. Not just leave you, destroy you. Then I guess I better get to her first. The opportunity came Wednesday evening. Sienna announced another girls' night, this time at Skyline, the trendy rooftop bar downtown. According to her messages, it was actually a celebration. Zane had convinced 3 new clients to sign up for his premium training package, and Sienna had received a promotion at work. I arrived at Skyline an hour early and positioned myself at the bar with a clear view of the main seating area. The place was packed with the afterwork crowd, young professionals trying to network and older ones trying to feel young again. Sienna arrived with Mel and Jules, all 3 dressed like they were auditioning for a reality show. They commandeered a high-top table near the windows, ordering expensive cocktails and taking selfies with the city skyline behind them. Zane showed up 20 minutes later, making an entrance that turned heads throughout the bar. He hugged each of the women, but his embrace with Sienna lasted long enough to make their relationship obvious to anyone paying attention. I waited until they were deep into their second round of drinks before making my move. Sienna, I called out, approaching their table with a smile that felt like broken glass. What a surprise running into you here. The color drained from her face. Eddie, I thought you were working late tonight. Finished early. Thought I'd grab a drink. I gestured to their table. Mind if I join you? I'd love to meet your friends. Mel and Jules exchanged glances that screamed panic, but Zane leaned back in his chair with an amused smirk. You must be the husband, he said, extending a hand. Zane Carter, I'm Sienna's trainer. Eddie Rollins, I replied, gripping his hand just hard enough to make him wince. I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope, he said, trying to match my pressure. Oh, definitely. Sienna's always talking about how much you've taught her. New positions, techniques she never tried before. Really expanded her horizons. Sienna's eyes went wide. Mel started coughing on her martini. That's great, Zane said, apparently oblivious to the double meaning. She's a very dedicated student. I bet she is. I signaled the bartender. Let me buy a round for the table. We're celebrating, right? Celebrating what? Jules asked weakly. Loyalty, I said, raising my glass once the drinks arrived. To loyal friends, faithful wives, and honest men. To people who say what they mean and mean what they say. The toast hung in the air like a challenge. Sienna's hand shook as she lifted her glass. And to trust, I continued, pulling out my phone, the foundation of every good relationship. I pressed play on a voice recording I'd extracted from Sienna's phone, a conversation between her and Zane from 2 days earlier. Their voices filled the immediate area around our table, discussing their afternoon together in graphic detail. Jesus Christ, Mel whispered. Sienna lunged for my phone, but I pulled it back. Careful, honey. You'll spill your drink. Zane's face had gone from amused to murderous. You recorded us? Actually, my wife recorded you. I just happened to find the file. I looked around the table. Funny thing about technology. It remembers everything. You sick fool! Zane started to stand, but I held up a hand. I wouldn't. See that gentleman at the bar in the blue shirt? That's Detective Arlo, an old army buddy of mine. He's very interested in our conversation. It was a lie. Detective Arlo was probably at home watching TV, but Zane sat back down. What do you want? Sienna asked, her voice barely audible. Want? I want my wife to stop lying to me. I want her trainer to find a new hobby, and I want her friends to mind their own business. I finished my drink and stood up. But what I want and what I'm going to get are 2 different things. I dropped a 50 on the table. Drinks are on me. Enjoy your girls' night. The fallout from the rooftop bar confrontation was swift and brutal. By Thursday morning, Sienna's phone was buzzing with damage control calls from Mel and Jules. Zane had apparently spent the night calling her, alternating between apologies and threats. But the real satisfaction came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Donnelly. "Eddie, dear," she said, appearing at my shop with a thermos of coffee and a gossip-hungry gleam in her eyes. "I heard the most interesting conversation yesterday evening." "Oh?" Mel from the gym was on her phone in the parking lot of the grocery store, practically screaming at someone about how they needed to fix this situation before it gets worse. Then she said something about lawyers and restraining orders. I accepted the coffee gratefully. "Sounds like drama." "The best kind," Mrs. Donnelly agreed. "Oh, and that young man with the Jeep? Someone spray-painted homewrecker on his windshield last night. Can't imagine who would do such a thing." I definitely couldn't imagine who would do that. Ray's artistic talents were truly impressive. That afternoon, Sienna came home early from work, looking like she'd been crying. Her usual perfect makeup was smudged, and her designer clothes looked wrinkled. "We need to talk," she said, sitting across from me at our kitchen table. "About what?" "Don't play dumb, Eddie. About last night, about the recording, about everything." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm listening." "Look, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. Zane and I, we're just friends. He's helping me get in shape, and maybe we got a little too close, but nothing really happened." "Nothing really happened," I repeated. "That's interesting, because I have about 6 hours of recordings that suggest otherwise." Her face crumpled. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting myself. Good thing, too, considering what I found out about your exit strategy." "My what?" I pulled out a folder of printed messages and spread them across the table. Divorce lawyers, asset protection, false domestic violence claims. Very thorough planning, Sienna. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "Where did you get these?" "Does it matter? The question is, what are we going to do about it?" "We could try counseling," she said weakly. "We could. Or you could move in with Zane and see how long his Instagram income supports both of you." "That's not... I never said I was leaving you for him." "No, you just said you were leaving me. The Zane part was implied." She started crying then, the kind of desperate tears that come when someone realizes their carefully constructed lies are falling apart. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Eddie. It just happened, and then it got out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it. It didn't just happen. You planned it. You and your friends turned my marriage into entertainment." "That's not true." I played another recording, this one of Mel, Jules, and Sienna laughing about my pathetic attempts to plan romantic dinners and weekend getaways. "Still not true?" I asked. She had no answer for that. Friday evening, I sent Sienna a text. "Meet me at the old Riverside warehouse on Industrial Drive. 8 p.m. Come alone and bring Zane. Time to settle this like adults." The warehouse had been abandoned for 3 years, ever since the textile company that owned it moved operations overseas. It was the perfect place for a private conversation. Isolated, empty, and far enough from town that no one would accidentally overhear us. Ray and I arrived early to set up. He positioned himself in the office overlooking the main floor while I waited by the loading dock. Detective Arlo, who I'd finally called for real this time, was parked outside in an unmarked car. I'd told him enough to get his attention without admitting to anything illegal. "You sure about this?" Ray asked through the radio earpiece he'd insisted I wear. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Sienna and Zane arrived together in his white Jeep, which now sported a fresh windshield thanks to his insurance company. They approached the warehouse cautiously, like they expected an ambush. "Eddie?" Sienna called out as they entered through the side door. "Are you here?" "Over here," I replied, stepping into the light cast by the industrial fixtures Ray had managed to get working. "Thanks for coming." Zane looked around the empty space suspiciously. "What is this place?" "Neutral ground. Somewhere we can talk without an audience." I gestured to a few chairs Ray had arranged in the center of the floor. "Please, sit." "I'd rather stand," Zane said. "Suit yourself." I remained standing too. "So, here we are. The husband, the wife, and the trainer. Sounds like the setup for a bad joke." "Eddie, please," Sienna said. "Can we just discuss this rationally?" "Rationally? That's funny, coming from someone who's been lying to me for months." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I have recordings of you planning to frame me for domestic violence. How rational is that?" "That was just talk," she protested. You would never actually what? Follow through? Like you never actually slept with Zane?" Zane stepped forward. "Look, man, I know you're upset, but Upset? I laughed. I'm not upset. Upset is what you feel when your team loses a game. This is something else entirely. What do you want from us? Sienna asked. I want you to understand something. For 15 years, I built a life, a business, a reputation, a marriage. I work 60-hour weeks to pay for your gym membership, your designer clothes, your fancy dinners with friends who think I'm a joke. You never said it to my face. That's different. I started pacing, letting the anger I'd been suppressing for weeks finally show. You turned me into a punchline, the clueless husband who doesn't know his wife is cheating, the blue-collar guy who isn't good enough for his ambitious wife. That's not how we see you, Zane said. Really? Because I have a text where you called me a pathetic loser who couldn't satisfy a woman if he had a manual. Zane's face flushed red. That was just what? Locker room talk? Boys being boys? I stopped pacing and faced him directly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear from my wife's life. No more training sessions, no more Instagram likes, no more secret apartment visits. And if I don't, I smiled, then everyone in this town gets to see the video of you crying in a portable toilet covered in paint. What video? He demanded. The one Ray took last week when you had your little accident behind the gym. Amazing what people will believe when they see it on social media. It was another bluff, but Zane's expression suggested he wasn't sure. You're bluffing, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Ray, you still have that footage? Crystal clear, Ray's voice crackled through my earpiece, loud enough for them to hear. Sienna looked back and forth between us. Eddie, what do you want from me? I want you to choose, right here, right now. Your marriage or your trainer, your reputation or your affair, your future or your fantasy. That's not fair, she protested. Fair? I pulled out the folder of printed messages and threw it at her feet. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair to plan someone's destruction while sharing their bed? Is it fair to steal money from joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms? Is it fair to turn someone's love into a weapon against them? She stared at the scattered papers, her face pale in the harsh warehouse lighting. I choose you, she whispered. I choose our marriage. Too late, I said. You already chose. Months ago when you bought that burner phone. Tonight isn't about choosing. It's about consequences. What consequences? Zane demanded, stepping protectively in front of Sienna. Well, let's see. I counted on my fingers. Sienna's boss at TechFlow received an anonymous email this morning with evidence of her extended lunch breaks and falsified timesheets. HR tends to frown on that kind of thing. Sienna's eyes went wide. You didn't. I did. Also, Mel's husband got some interesting reading material about his wife's role in facilitating infidelity. Apparently, he's filing for divorce and naming Mel as the primary cause of marital breakdown in his custody petition. You fool, she breathed. And Jules? Well, Jules made the mistake of using company equipment to help coordinate your affair. Something about sending fake meeting invitations to cover your absences. Her IT department is very interested in that. You're destroying innocent people, Zane said. Innocent? I laughed. None of you are innocent. You're all complicit in a conspiracy to humiliate me and steal my life. We never tried to steal your life, Sienna protested. No? Then what would you call planning to take half my business in a divorce while claiming I was abusive? What would you call turning my friends against me with lies about my character? What would you call making me the laughingstock of this entire town? She had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Zane, you're going to find a new gym, preferably in a different state. Your reputation here is about to become very complicated. You can't make me leave, he said. Actually, I can't. But the 3 domestic violence complaints I filed against you this week might encourage you to relocate. Amazing how many people saw you threatening me at various locations around town. That's perjury. Prove it. Your word against mine and 3 witnesses. I smiled. Guess which one of us has more credibility in this town? Zane's hands clenched into fists, but he didn't move. Smart man. And Sienna, I turned to my wife. You're going to sign divorce papers that give me everything I want. The house, the business, the savings accounts. You get to keep your car and your clothes and whatever dignity you have left. I'll fight you in court, she said. With what lawyer? I already contacted the 3 firms you consulted with. Conflict of interest prevents them from representing you now. and the evidence I have of your infidelity and fraud makes you a very unattractive client for anyone else. This is insane, she said. You can't just destroy our entire lives because you're hurt. Hurt? I stepped closer to her. Sienna, I'm not hurt. Hurt implies that I still care about you. What I am is methodical. For weeks, I've been documenting every lie, every betrayal, every moment of disrespect. I've built a case against you that's airtight and devastating. What if I refuse? She asked quietly. Then everything goes public. The recordings, the messages, the financial fraud, all of it. I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of person you are. Your career, your social life, your future relationships, all of it gets burned to the ground. Tears were streaming down her face now. You used to love me. I did. That's what makes this so satisfying. The warehouse fell silent, except for the sound of Sienna's crying and the distant hum of traffic on the interstate. Fine, she whispered finally. I'll sign your papers. Smart choice. I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket. Ray had them drawn up yesterday. Very thorough. She took the papers with shaking hands. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore. But I hear Zane's looking for a roommate. Zane started to object, but I cut him off with a look. Actually, there's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. Smile. I took a picture of the two of them standing together in the empty warehouse, looking defeated and desperate. For my records, I explained, in case anyone asks what happened to my marriage. The next morning, Sienna packed her belongings while I watched from the kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper like it was any other Saturday. She moved through our house like a ghost, taking only what she could carry in 2 suitcases. 15 years, she said, pausing in the doorway. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me, I replied without looking up from the sports section. That's why this hurts so much. Then why are you doing this? I folded the paper and met her eyes. Because you taught me that love is a weakness. You used my feelings for you as a weapon against me. Now I'm returning the favor. She left without another word. Ray arrived an hour later with coffee and donuts from the shop downtown. How you feeling, boss? Like I've been holding my breath for months and finally exhaled. Zane's moving out too, apparently. Mrs. Donnelly saw him loading up a U-Haul this morning. Good. Clean slate for everyone. You really think you'll be happy? Ray asked, settling into Sienna's chair at the kitchen table. Happy? I don't know, but I'll be honest. For the first time in months, I know exactly where I stand. Monday morning brought the final pieces of my revenge into place. Sienna's termination from TechFlow was announced in a company-wide email citing ethical violations and falsification of records. Mel's divorce proceedings were front-page news in the local paper's gossip section. Jules had been suspended pending an investigation into misuse of company resources. And Zane? Zane had indeed left town, but not before posting a lengthy Instagram confession about the dangers of getting involved with married women. His follower count had dropped by 70% overnight. I was organizing paperwork in my shop when Detective Arlo stopped by. Hell of a thing, he said, accepting a cup of coffee. 3 divorces, 2 job losses, and a social media influencer's career destroyed all in one weekend. Sounds like a busy weekend, I replied carefully. You know what's funny? Nobody filed any criminal complaints. Usually in situations like this, someone claims maltreatment or stalking or something, but everybody just accepted their fate. Maybe they knew they deserved it. Maybe. Arlo sipped his coffee thoughtfully. Or maybe someone was very careful to stay on the right side of the law while making sure everyone got what they had coming. That would be smart, I agreed. Very smart. Almost like someone with security expertise planned the whole thing. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching Ray work on a customer's car. You know what I learned in the Army? Arlo said finally. What's that? Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness until it's too late to matter. He finished his coffee and stood to leave. Take care of yourself, Eddie, and maybe change your locks. You never know who might have copies of your keys. After he left, I did exactly that. #. Epilogue, 6 months later. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March. Sienna signed everything without contest, probably because fighting would have meant revealing details she preferred to keep private. She moved to another state. I heard she was working as a receptionist at a dental office, a significant step down from her HR director position. Mel's ex-husband won full custody of their kids after presenting evidence of her involvement in multiple affairs. She moved in with her sister and took a job at a call center. Jewel was terminated after the investigation revealed she'd been running a side business using company resources. Apparently, helping people create fake alibis wasn't limited to infidelity. And Zane? Last I heard, he was working at a gym in Phoenix, teaching spin classes to retirees. His Instagram account had been deleted. As for me, business was booming. Word had gotten around that I was very good at finding out what people were hiding, and apparently that's a valuable skill in a small town. I'd hired 2 more technicians and was considering expanding into private investigation services. Mrs. Donnelly still brought me coffee and gossip every morning. Ray still made jokes about trusting women who photographed their food, and I still worked late into the evening, but now it was by choice rather than avoidance. I never remarried. After Sienna, I found I preferred the company of people who said what they meant and meant what they said. It made for a smaller social circle, but a more honest one. Sometimes people asked if I missed being married. The answer was complicated. I missed the idea of marriage, the partnership, the shared dreams, the comfort of having someone to come home to. But I didn't miss the reality of what my marriage had become, a performance where I was the only one who didn't know it was a show. On quiet evenings, I'd sit in my workshop and think about the moment I found that burner phone. The moment my world shifted from comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Some people might say I overreacted, that I should have tried counseling or forgiveness or any of the other solutions that prioritize preserving relationships over preserving dignity. But those people never had to sit in an empty warehouse and watch their spouse choose between love and lust, only to realize the choice had been made months ago. They never had to learn that the person they trusted most in the world had turned their love into a punchline, their devotion into a joke, their future into a casualty of someone else's selfishness. They never had to discover that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to destroy everything you thought you wanted. I learned that revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's a dish best served methodically, legally, and with absolute precision. It's not about anger or hatred, it's about justice. It's about making sure that people who treat others as expendable learn what it feels like to be discarded. And sometimes when the wind is right and the evening is quiet, I can still hear the echo of Sienna's tears in that warehouse. The sound of someone finally understanding that actions have consequences. It's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard.